What would be Mike, the anticipated benefit to our ratepayers if this were to come to fruition?
What would be the benefit?
Yeah.
Well, I think if you're looking at renewables, you have a diversified portfolio. You're taking, again, eliminating fossil fuels from a portion of our energy mix. It is an efficient, in terms of capacity, it's an efficient use of energy or generator of energy. It obviously meets the New York State renewable portfolio standards and requirements to move forward in developing that.
I guess in terms of how many megawatts would we look to see from this?
We're looking at an incremental from anywhere from 350 megawatts up to 700 megawatts.
And that would not necessitate our doing other projects to create this same energy?
Certainly. Now, again, this is an intermittent source of power, so you still have to have some capacity on island, but this would be generating those numbers in terms of megawatt.
Is the 350 the total size of the project, or is that our piece?
The 350 would be the total size of the project.
Phase one. If we went to a phase two of 700, so just do the math. A third of each.
If you were to sort of peer into your crystal ball, and if all things fell into place, when do you think? How long would it take for completion of this project?
Well, these are big projects. These are long projects. We're probably looking at the 2016, 2017 timeframe. What we are trying to do, though, and MMS, and who's the arm under the Department of Interior, as well as the Department of Energy, has streamlined some of their regulations. And in fact, the lease process that we are going to be a partner in will be one of the first in terms of that streamlined process of getting identifying the area, a potential area, and then moving forward with some compatible larger environmental studies and wind and wave studies. So we're looking in that time frame, but again, I think all of the agencies that we've been in contact with, they're looking for regulatory, to remove that regulatory uncertainty and streamline that. You saw memorandums of agreement that have been drafted between Department of Energy and Department of Interior. They're on a much more coordinated track. And the Department of State in New York is intimately working with those two agencies right now on a number of those task forces that I identified earlier, again, to identify areas of New York that are appropriate for offshore wind so that the permitting and the regulatory process can be streamlined. That's one of the advantages that we have right now with this group.
Thank you. Chris? The dollars that are involved here, I know you mentioned that they're going to reviewing all the environmental concerns and the wind studies that are associated with this. Do any part of the dollars go to some sort of an economic study so we could see exactly or anticipated costs and?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yes, that's one of the studies that we're actually engaged in right now with Con Ed and with NYPA, as well as with AWS TrueWind, is looking at the economics, and again, looking at the economics of this project as well as a north-south renewable transmission project. Again, we're trying to compare renewables to renewables.
And some of it, Chris, will go towards the preparation of the RFP, where we'll get the numbers from the developers of the proposed cost of the project. So in a way, yes. But we definitely need to look at the economics. And those who will oppose the plan will try to make an economic argument that it's way too expensive, and they'll look at it from a certain perspective. And we need to look at it with an open mind about the environmental benefits, the goal towards creating a clean energy economy, the goal towards reducing our impacts on climate change, and those are going to be tougher things to put a price tag on. But we're also, the state is working on that as well, and other states are working on those types of studies to assist us with the other economic benefits, not just the economic cost. So we'll be looking at both.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
And those economic costs also go to potential federal, federal energy bill changes in the future, or climate cap and trade.
Mr. Chairman.
That will change the economics.
Yes.
Okay. I have a few questions. They sort of speak to a concern from having been at the meetings and lived through the process the last time out. It wasn't just a few meetings, I should point out. There were dozens of meetings that I sat in on, and it was probably over 100 meetings altogether. And to sit in a room with hundreds of people arguing that there be certain impacts from the project, and then hear the representatives of LIPA say, well, we're going to do an environmental impact statement on this in the future. I just saw that as not a good way to engage the public. And it just sounds like what we're discussing here is that we're going to have a public outreach campaign where you will have to give the same answer. If someone says, is there going to be toxic oils leaking out of the cables? Is it going to kill thousands of birds? Is it going to kill millions of birds? How many birds is it going to kill? Is it going to affect marine life? Is it going to, shut down the fishing capability for commercial fishing? On each of these items, how are you going to answer the questions when we haven't done our homework before we're going with the RFP and before we're going out to the public? So I just think if you don't do the public outreach the right way, you're really motivating and activating opposition to the project, because when you say in a public meeting, well, we're going to do an environmental impact statement in the future, first of all, the environmentalists in the room view that as, well, EISs have really lost their value in the last several years. No one really has tremendous trust that EISs seriously analyze the issues. So the bird advocates are going to not accept that statement that you're going to do an EIS in the future. If you say you have desktop analysis, well, we had analysis from Europe. We had radar data showing birds flying around the turbines. Unpersuasive because it's Europe. They want an analysis of this site that is extensive and convincing, and it's credible, and it's done by non-utility experts. And I just, I'm thrilled that we're having this discussion. I'm thrilled that Kevin and your leadership in bringing this forward, because you're bringing forward something that you're going to get some criticism on, and you're doing it anyway. So I really do have tremendous respect for what you're doing here. But I do feel we learned some lessons from the last time, and I wish there would have been more opportunity to discuss what those lessons were and come up with a plan for how we're going forward here. I don't understand why we're doing an RFP in a couple of months. We were told there was going to be an RFP in December, and then we were told in April. Now we're being told in July. But why are we doing an RFP if we haven't done the initial environmental analyses? And $1.25 million doesn't sound like a robust environmental analysis for a project that's likely to be a billion-dollar project. So, wouldn't it make more sense for the collaboration to do the environmental analysis itself and then do the RFP and bring in the private company? And wouldn't it make sense for the environmental analysis to be engaged in a process where people who have concerns, we know the commercial fishermen are going to fight this, we know the surfer groups are going to fight this, we know there's other groups, Jones Beach groups or whatever, that are going to fight this. Wouldn't it make sense to bring them into a meeting and bring them into a room and then have a third party, somewhat independent, expert kind of consultant firm that's helping to take the lists of what their concerns are and then responding to them? Wouldn't that be a better process than just holding public meetings and telling people that it's still going to be years before we'll be able to answer most of their questions?
Well, let me try that